Hey everyone! Today we're exploring another chilling and disturbing case. If you'd like to support the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stay engaged. It really means a lot. I truly appreciate it. Now, take a deep breath and let's dive in. A woman confesses to cheating on her husband on national television. Hours later, she's lying in a pool of blood in her kitchen, and her husband is sitting calmly on the front porch, waiting for police. What really happened between that confession and the gunshot? Dan Carter was the kind of man you'd expect to hold it together under pressure. A decorated corrections officer, a church elder, a husband of 12 years, a father of 2. He lived by discipline, duty, and control. Melissa Carter was warm, bubbly, and a regular face at PDA meetings. But beneath her smiles were cracks, boredom, dissatisfaction, and a growing emotional distance from her husband. To the outside world, they were the all-American couple. But inside their home, things were unraveling. In what was supposed to be a fun surprise appearance, Melissa's best friend signed her up for a controversial daytime TV segment called Secrets Uncovered. But producers had a different plan. Live on air, Melissa was reunited with Brandon, Dan's ex-best friend. And then she confessed. She admitted to a 6-month affair, right there on national TV. The audience gasped. Brandon smirked. Dan was watching live from the break room at his job. According to a co-worker, Dan said nothing, just stood up, grabbed his coat, and walked out. That evening, Melissa arrived home. The kids were gone. The house was silent. Dan was sitting in the dark. They argued. She cried. He asked her one question. "Did you ever love him?" She didn't answer. Moments later, a single gunshot echoed to the neighborhood. When police arrived, they found Melissa critically wounded in the kitchen. Dan sat quietly on the porch and said, "Now we're even." At first, police believed it was a textbook case of emotional rage. But as investigators dug deeper, strange things started surfacing. Why did Melissa agree to the show in the first place? Why did Dan pack his suitcase, not hers? Why did Brandon, her affair partner, disappear just days after shooting? And most chilling of all, Melissa had taken out a life insurance policy on Dan just 2 months before the affair went public. Was Dan's act truly one of betrayal-fueled rage? Or was he reacting to a bigger plot? A setup years in the making? Melissa survived the shooting, but in her private testimony to police, she whispered one name, not Dan's, Brandon. You've heard the side of the husband. You've heard what happened on TV. But what if there's a third player pulling the strings behind it all? Was the affair just a distraction? Did Dan uncover a plot against him? And where is Brandon now? Melissa survived, barely, with a collapsed lung and multiple surgeries. She made it through the critical 48 hours. At her bedside, detectives asked a question everyone wanted answered. Why did your husband shoot you? Her answer was quiet, but chilling. I think I was supposed to die, but not by his hand. She didn't elaborate, but she whispered a name. Brandon. Detectives reopened the investigation, not just into Dan, but into Melissa and Brandon too. Here's what they uncovered. 2 months before her TV confession, Melissa had taken out a $750,000 life insurance policy on Dan. Dan had no idea. The beneficiary? Brandon King, Dan's former best friend, Melissa's affair partner. Brandon went off the grid 2 days after the shooting. His number disconnected, his apartment abandoned. But surveillance footage showed something odd. Brandon had visited Melissa's workplace twice, just days before the TV taping. And even more disturbing, he had been Googling how to fake a break-in. How long does a life insurance payout take after accidental death? Untraceable poisons. Dan's defense attorney latched onto a new theory. Dan didn't shoot Melissa out of rage. He shot her after discovering the life insurance policy and what he believed was a murder-for-money setup. He claimed he found printed emails between Melissa and Brandon in the trash. Emails detailing a plan to stage a robbery gone wrong. That's why he packed his own bag. That's why he waited at home. He wasn't running. He was confronting. But something snapped. As Melissa recovered, her story began to change. First, she claimed Brandon was obsessed with her. Then, she said she barely knew about the insurance policy. Finally, she refused to testify further, citing trauma. But investigators had already found a deleted voice memo from Melissa's phone, recovered by digital forensics. She had recorded herself rehearsing a speech. In it, she said, "He doesn't suspect a thing. One more push and it's all ours. Just act shocked. That's your part." No names, no context, but it was damning enough. Despite a nationwide manhunt, Brandon King has never been found. Some believe he fled the country. Others think he's dead. But then, just 1 month ago, a blurred photo surfaced from a hotel in Mexico. A man at the bar, sunglasses, beard, but the same tattoo Brandon had on his left forearm. Interpol is investigating. Was Melissa the real mastermind? Did Brandon vanish? Or is he watching from afar, waiting to collect what's left of a failed plan? For nearly a year, Brandon King was a ghost. No phone activity, no credit card usage, no social media. Interpol flagged him as a person of interest in a multi-state conspiracy to commit insurance fraud and attempted murder. Then came the photo, taken by a tourist in Cancun. It was blurry but unmistakable. The bar, the tattoo, the smirk. It was Brandon. When authorities arrived 48 hours later, the man had vanished again, but he had paid cash for a room under a fake name. Digital forensics uncovered deleted emails from Melissa's tablet. The tone was chilling. Brandon wrote, "He needs to go. Clean and simple. You deserve better. We both do. And we can make it look like a robbery if we follow the plan." Melissa responded, "Just be careful. I don't want to be tied to this. Not until after." These messages were encrypted. Melissa had used a hidden app masked as a calculator. She deleted it after the shooting, but it left traces. The district attorney's office reopened the case. Not against Dan, but against Melissa. Here's where it gets twisted. Records show that 1 week before going on a TV show, Melissa visited an insurance office, alone. She made Brandon the primary beneficiary of not just Dan's policy, but a second policy on herself. If either Dan or Melissa died, Brandon stood to gain nearly $1.2 million. Authorities now believe there were two versions of the plan. Plan A, kill Dan, collect the money, disappear together. Plan B, if Dan found out, frame him. Either way, Melissa never intended to stay married. From behind bars, Dan gave his first televised interview. When asked if he regretted pulling the trigger, he replied, "Yes, but not for the reason you think. I should have walked away. I should have let karma take care of her." He handed over a letter Brandon had mailed him anonymously after the shooting. Inside was just a photo. Melissa and Brandon on a beach, drinks in hand. Taken weeks before the show aired. Time-stamped. Smiling. Dan had never seen it before. Interpol believes Brandon is using forged documents and may be operating under an alias in Central America. But last month he made a mistake. He booked a flight using a fake name. But the fingerprint scan at a Colombian airport pinged Interpol's database. They missed him by minutes. Melissa has now been charged with conspiracy to commit murder and insurance fraud. She's claiming innocence. She blames Brandon. She insists she was manipulated. But here's the question no one's asking. What if Melissa wasn't just manipulated? What if she was grooming Brandon all along? 10 years before she married Dan Carter, Melissa was engaged to a man named Eli Reynolds, a 32-year-old real estate agent with a rising career and a wedding on the calendar. In 2007, Eli was found dead in his bathtub. The scene staged to look like an accident. No signs of forced entry. No bruises. No witnesses. His death was ruled accidental drowning due to intoxication. Melissa claimed she'd gone out to get dinner. She was never questioned beyond a basic statement. But now, detectives are taking a second look. After Melissa's recent charges made headlines, a retired detective named Marvin Griggs contacted authorities. He was the original officer on Eli's case. He had always believed something wasn't right. Now retired and free to speak, he shares old notes. Eli had no history of drinking. Toxicology showed alcohol level consistent with 8+ shots. His bank account had been emptied just days before his death. Melissa had taken out a life insurance policy on him, and was paid $250,000 2 months later. When questioned, she claimed she didn't remember details. 3 men, 3 tragic connections. Eli Reynolds died under suspicious circumstances. Melissa benefited financially. Dan Carter survived a gunshot after discovering her affair and insurance scam. Brandon King, currently missing, but deeply entangled in a potential murder-for-profit plot. In each case, Melissa positioned herself as the emotionally fragile victim. But behind closed doors, court documents show a pattern of manipulation, coercion, and financial control. Investigators are now comparing notes from multiple jurisdictions. Court-appointed psychiatrists have begun compiling a profile of Melissa Carter. Early evaluations suggest signs of narcissistic personality disorder, high-functioning sociopathy, emotional disassociation from consequences. One expert noted, "She doesn't just lie, she designs narratives. Every relationship is a script, and she's always the lead." Just when the media frenzy peaked, Interpol received a tip from a hotel manager in Cartagena, Colombia. A man matching Brandon King's description had checked in using an American passport under the name Eli Carter. Yes, he used Melissa's dead ex-fiancée as first name and her current husband's last. Security footage shows him leaving the lobby with a woman wearing a black baseball cap with a tattoo on her wrist, matching Melissa's. Melissa Carter is currently in custody with no travel privileges. So if that woman wasn't Melissa, who is she? And why is Brandon King using the names of Melissa's past lovers to disappear? Interpol investigators analyzing surveillance footage from a luxury hotel in Cartagena. Colombia spotted what seemed to be Brandon King. Same gait, same tattoo on his forearm, a familiar smirk. But he wasn't alone. A woman entered with him. Long dark hair, baseball cap, sunglasses. She paid in cash. She stayed close. She looked nervous. What caught the attention of analysts? The wrist tattoo. Not just any design. The same feather plus serpent combo Melissa had inked on her 25th birthday. But Melissa was in custody. So, who was this woman? Digging into Melissa's sealed juvenile records revealed something shocking. Melissa had a younger half-sister, given up for adoption at birth. Name, Sabrina Dawn Carter. Born, 1994. Last known location, foster system in Texas. Disappeared from records at age 19. There were rumors she had run off with a much older man after a stint in juvie. That man's name? Brandon King. Investigators now believe Brandon and Sabrina have been in contact for years, possibly even involved before Melissa and Brandon's affair began. Here's where it gets murky. A leaked phone call from prison captured Melissa speaking to an unidentified woman. "He'll screw you over too. SAB don't think you're special. I built him. I gave him power. You were just a backup plan." Could Melissa have known about Brandon and Sabrina all along? Was her entire relationship with Brandon manipulation out of revenge or obsession? Or worse, was this a Carter family pattern? A multi-generational con rooted in seduction, lies, and blood? In a shocking development, Eli Reynolds' mother sent prosecutors a handwritten letter she had kept secret for over a decade. In it, she wrote, "Melissa always had someone else in her life. Eli told me she'd disappear for days and come back with new jewelry, cash. He once said, 'If anything happens to me, it won't be an accident, and it won't be her hands that do it.' Her final words, 'Check the bank accounts. You'll find the same man.'" Interpol confirmed. Brandon King is now traveling with a woman using the alias Samantha Dawn. The alias pulls from both Sabrina and Melissa's middle names. Together, they've been spotted in Colombia, Panama, and now Venezuela. And now, Interpol has traced a money transfer to a surgeon in Caracas known for performing facial reconstruction surgery for criminals. Brandon may be preparing to disappear forever. But there's a final wild card. Sabrina. Is Sabrina his true partner or his next victim? Is Melissa orchestrating a revenge play from behind bars? And will authorities catch Brandon before he sheds his last identity? Interpol makes an arrest, but it's not who you think. Sabrina vanishes without a trace. And Melissa finally confesses to something no one saw coming. At her sentencing hearing, Melissa Carter stunned the courtroom by requesting to speak without her attorney present. What followed was a 7-minute, uninterrupted monologue that turned the entire case upside down. I never meant for Dan to die. I didn't even mean for Eli to die. But I will tell you this. There was someone before both of them. Someone who never made the papers. Someone who was buried, literally and figuratively. And if Brandon thinks I forgot, he's wrong. The judge tried to cut her off, but the damage was done. The room went silent. Digging into Melissa's adolescent years, a name surfaced from a small town in Georgia. Jesse Lane, age 17, reported missing in 2003. Last seen with Melissa, then just 15. At the time, Jesse's disappearance was dismissed as a runaway case. His parents always suspected otherwise. He was Melissa's first boyfriend, and, according to her diary entries, the first person she ever felt owned her. In one disturbing entry, she wrote, "If he leaves, I'll bury every piece of him, not out of hate, but so no one else can have him." Investigators obtained a warrant to search the now-abandoned Carter family farm. The cadaver dogs hid within 12 minutes, 3 feet beneath the old tool shed. Forensic teams recover human remains wrapped in plastic and duct tape. Dental records confirmed. Jesse Lane. Cause of death, blunt force trauma to the skull. Estimated time of death, 2003. He had been missing for over 22 years. Melissa had never been suspected, never questioned, never even mentioned his name again until now. When asked why now, Melissa simply said, Brandon needed to remember who taught him how to disappear bodies. And the world needed to know, I've never lost a game. Not once. Psychiatrists now believe Melissa Carter is a high-functioning female sociopath, one of the rarest profiles in criminal psychology, not driven by rage, not by trauma, but by control, vanity, and legacy. Just days after Melissa's confession, Interpol captured Brandon King in a Venezuelan port city. He had just undergone partial facial reconstruction and was planning to leave for South Africa under a forged identity. He was arrested without incident, but Sabrina Carter was nowhere to be found. No records, no sightings. Her hotel room was clean, her belongings gone. Interpol believes she fled using a false passport the day before Brandon's arrest. One woman confessed to 3 men's destruction. One man finally got caught, and one woman simply vanished. And now, as the final chapter closes, only one question remains. Was Brandon King just Melissa's puppet? Was Sabrina part of the scheme all along? Or did Melissa confess just to keep control one last time? No one knows for sure. But one thing is clear. Melissa Carter may be behind bars, but her web is still unraveling. What are your thoughts on this case? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay updated with more stories, where each case isn't just about crime, but also offers a lesson for life.